Welcome to this week's Talking Lower League with Talking Boys. We're back again. We say it every single week, but this time, thankfully, we touched on it last week, but League One and League Two are definitely returning. They're coming back for 22 games in a split, starting on the 20th of March, with some Scottish Cup games on the 23rd of March as well. So much to get through for us this week. We're going to be covering the latest when it comes to the West of Scotland League. We're going to be breaking down the return for League One and League Two sides and what that might look like, who's going to be the runners and riders for the remainder of the season, who's going to take advantage of this, who's going to struggle. And we're also going to talk about, with the extension of the loan window and free agents and things like that, we're going to talk about some kind of standout signings and really, whose sides are shaping up the best. And of course, we've got your questions as well that we'll get through. So plenty to get through. And as ever, I'm your host, Dylan. And for the first time in a long time, it's just the two of us here this week. And I'm joined by the man himself, Alistair Sloss. Ali, firstly, how are you doing? And secondly, don't worry, we will go on to how Talking Lower League FC are getting on in Pro Evolution Soccer 2021. I know that's the first thing that you want to ask. How are Talking Lower League FC getting on in the English Championship of all leagues? I imagine that was the first thing you were going to ask about.
Yeah, well, obviously, the first question is always about me and my needs. I'm selfish that way, but no, I'm good. Doing well, another interesting week, and I'm sure that this time next week there'll be even more to talk about as the disaster spins even more out of control.
I just a warm fuzzy feeling I get when it's just me and you on these types of podcasts, or any type of call we have these days, just really gets me through things. So thank you for that inspiring introduction. And obviously, just to clarify, Talking Lower League are currently sitting 12th in the English Championship in PES. And for anybody, obviously, that doesn't understand that poor reference that we put into the intro there, you can now play as Talking Lower League, thanks to our friends over at the Scottish Football Reddit. You can download the files to play as Talking Lower League with our kit, which you can obviously still purchase over on Victory Kits. Go over to our social media channels for all the details there. And if you're interested in playing as Talking Lower League, give us a wee shout for the files, or you can find them on our Twitter and things like that as well. Right, moving on to real life football for a change. We're going to just kick things off, Ali, with a wee bit of an update on the West of Scotland League. Of course, as things stand, as we touched on last week, the West of Scotland League and the Lowland League are still in temporary suspension, both from training as well as playing, unlike obviously the SPFL World Leagues that are all coming back. And there was a statement today at the time of recording on the 10th of March, and the statement today was very clear, and it gave much needed direction, really, for the club's supporters and everybody involved. The new board releasing a statement saying that the season will be officially ended and declared null and void if clubs are not allowed to resume full contact training by the 3rd of April, therefore allowing for the resumption of competitive fixtures no later than the 17th of April. Ali, good step, positive, clear messaging from the newly elected board, the West of Scotland League. What's your thoughts on the statement?
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow for fans who were really, really excited about this new league. Like ourselves, we were really excited. We were really encouraged by the signs of change willing to come within the structure of the game and all the kind of enthusiasm around it slowly been zapped away from the season, from teams pulling out, from football being cancelled, and now this hammer blow of a potential of a null and void first season. And it's a real shame for the teams that have done everything within their power to ensure the season goes ahead. They've done everything in their power to ensure that high standards were met, protocols were met, and you've got teams like Clydebank who were flying high, Troon who were, in our opinions, kind of defying the odds a wee bit and really, really playing really nice football and doing really well.
The likes of Neilston Alley as well, a side we've spoken about a lot on the West of Scotland Weekly show as well. Anybody, any West of Scotland League fans that are listening and haven't listened to our West of Scotland League weekly series, which we had earlier in the season when football was taking place, go on to our SoundCloud and Spotify and things, and you can catch up there. But Neilston Alley, that's the side that the three of us harped on about. Arguably, I would probably say the most impressive side across all the divisions in the West of Scotland League this season. I mean, they'll be gutted to get off to a flyer and then not get the chance to see what happens.
Yeah, no, you're right, and it's really tough because obviously, if the players can't resume training and it's not safe as deemed by the government to play, then there's not really an option. But on the other hand, has it been properly looked at? Has a solution been properly looked at? Has efforts been made to kind of preserve football kind of down from it? But you could even argue the Championship, given the late comeback from League 1 and 2. I personally don't think so. I'd be interested to see the kind of data on transmissions, etc., coming from lower down leagues of football compared to higher. Obviously, there's more testing, better facilities, etc., higher up the leagues. But I think everyone's gutted. Everyone wants to kind of get back to it, and I hope no one's dissuaded from participating next season.
Yeah, if anything, I guess one of the positives out of a potential null and void is that everybody will have plenty of time to ramp up and prepare for next season, including the sides that decided not to participate this season as well, who they've obviously had loads of time, but they'll really ramp up as well. And you're just hoping, Ali, as well, like we've touched on previously, that, of course, with some of the restrictions being eased this week across Scotland and hopefully over kind of week on week, kind of slowly but surely, the cases fall and the deaths fall and more easing comes into place, that we may well be at a point that come the end of March, start of April, we can not just return to training for West of Scotland League sides, but playing as well. And I'm sure obviously that would be the case for the Lowland League as well. So yeah, fingers crossed. As ever, really, that's all we can really do on that front. However, we need to swiftly move on to sides that are returning to the pitch. We've seen all the pictures from training and things like that, sides back in training over the weekend, going into this week. And of course, since the last time we recorded, it was confirmed by the clubs and the SPFL that it's going to be a 22 game season with a split that's going to be the way forward for the League 1 and League 2 sides returning. Of course, that puts a little bit of, I guess, confusion into what the fixture's going to look like at the time of recording. There's no updated fixture list as of yet. What about the playoffs? Are dates going to have to be changed and things like that? There's still things that need to be ironed out, it seems. But yeah, still plenty for us to get through, Ali. And what me and you are just going to do is really try and dissect things as much as possible with regards to League 1 and League 2 returning, as well as answering some of your questions, one listener. So Ali, just to kind of kick things off with this segment, great news that League 1 and League 2 are coming back, of course, first and foremost. Obviously, I think the testing decision was probably the one of the key reasons why the government and SPFL and SFA and things were happy for things to return. However, the clubs and the SPFL and the governing bodies disagreed about the duration of the remaining games this season. The governing bodies wanted 18 games. The clubs wanted 22 with a split in there as well. We've discussed the 18-game option before, but now that it's been confirmed that it's going to be 22 games still, How do you feel about that? I mean, from my point of view, logistically and things like, all you need to do is look at maybe some sides like Clyde, for example, that have only played, 8 or 9 games. Some clubs are going to have to play 2, maybe 3 games a week. It's great to have football back, but that raises a few questions for me anyway.
No, I'm with you. I agree. I'm glad football's back, and I was just saying there, I'd like to see the difference in the rate of transmissions, for example, throughout the leagues. But ultimately, the important thing is, as we always say in the podcast, some things are bigger than football. And if it's not safe for guys to play football, first and foremost, that's the important thing. We don't play. We're glad to be back. Yeah, obviously. The 22 game thing I find interesting purely because the battle to get even a 27 game season was difficult enough for the teams. The proposal of the 18 game season, I wasn't a fan. You're basically kind of condemning a team to promotion or relegation based on half a season's worth of work, which I don't really believe is that fair. Like we've seen teams change positions dramatically within 4 games of a season, a quarter of a season, never mind half of a season being played. But
all you need to do is look at the championship table. It seems like it's changing daily, Ali.
exactly, in the West of Scotland leagues, and how interesting League One was last season at the top of the. It's difficult. The thing I do like though is the inclusion of the split. It's interesting, and it gives teams a chance to maybe not be condemned in a relegation sense, because your last X up, your last four, 5 fixtures are going to be against teams that are around you. Therefore, points that you can pick up. Same for the teams in the upper half of the state of the league. They've got a chance to kind of catch up with other teams by beating them. There's more chance of teams being beaten if they're playing more quality opposition. To that aspect, I like it. I'm with you, but I'm just glad to have football back. The testing stuff, it is what it is. But I'm just happy that we're going to have some football back and have more than, as much as we love the championship, it'll be nice to have something more than just that to focus on. It'll be easier for us to make content and instead of creating fantasy worlds for us to live in.
I was literally just about to say there, it's probably about time that we had our feet firmly planted in the real world. It's been a long time coming for the 3 of us. No, I completely agree. And I think the split thing's quite fascinating just in general, Ali, because already you just describing that, obviously, in layman's terms, just gets you excited because, it's one of the interesting things about the Premiership every season is the split just opens up. It is obviously like too many leagues, literally, but it's fascinating the way that it often pans out. And I do think that, we've said it many times before that our game, especially the lower leagues, need more resources for coverage and commercial and marketing and things like that. I mean, I've got a funny feeling that if the split generates a bit more coverage, might not be a lot, but if it generates a lot more coverage, just because it's completely new for League One and League Two, it might be something that potentially stays longer term. The idea of a split. Do you think that would be a possibility?
I think it's a possibility, but potentially one. I'm not sure how actively I would support it in the lower leagues. Having a split would realistically could potentially cut teams short in terms of potential revenue, less fixtures against bigger teams, bigger crowds, especially at the business end of the season when fans are more likely to go to games and casuals are more likely to go to games. It could kind of harm teams that way rather than having 4 guaranteed fixtures against some of the bigger teams. But as I've said, it is kind of difficult to kind of write off the prospect of a team being able to if they're in relegation trouble or gunning for the title, to prove themselves against people around them. It evens up that playing field a wee bit, I think.
No, I think you're spot on, and I'm sure, touch wood, hopefully, even though personally, I know we've already just touched on this, that I would have probably preferred, probably preferred an 18-game resumption just because of the logistical elements that come around that, especially if some clubs in the lower leagues in League One and League Two suffer from a COVID outbreak. I know we've obviously seen Dunfermline last couple of games, their games in the Championship being postponed because of an unfortunate COVID incident there as well. So you're really just hoping that the testing really does give teams the best chance to get back to playing. And it's great to see all the photos on social media of, some people, who have signed for teams, 2-3 months ago who haven't yet met their teammates and stuff. Now they're linking up. They're getting at least, 2 weeks training. I know it's not a lot considering the amount of time they've been off for, but it's something. It's something. And yeah, we just can't wait. It'll actually be nice to, and I know we've discussed the streaming element of the lower leagues, on and off this season, and the pros and cons of that. But it would just be nice for, selfishly, for us lower league fans to watch our side again on a Saturday afternoon. Saturdays kind of make it feel like a Saturday again, or even the odd midweek tie. Even though most of us are working from home at the moment and things like that. You can finish up your work, grab a beer, get your dinner, and get the stream ready to watch, and it just feels like stuff to look forward to again, which is brilliant. Ali, kind of moving on from the logistics of how things may pan out in League One and League Two coming back, I wanted to chat to you about who do we see being the winners and losers of the return, because we've seen sides, across the country at all different levels after a big break. Some have came back, hit the ground running, and some still, despite how long they've been back, it just hasn't clicked, it hasn't worked. As well, is there any? Let's maybe kick off with maybe League One if you want to. Why don't we just do League One and then League Two? Who do you see being, kind of, I guess, some of the winners from the return in a League One perspective? Do you see it being the status quo as is, or do you see maybe some sides that were struggling coming back, or how do you see things panning out?
I think the first major winners from League One return is going to be Falkirk. They get to continue on the impressive start to the season. They're top of the league after being trapped in League One for another season. They have got a chance to kind of get out. I think Partick Thistle might find themselves benefiting from a restart for the same reason. They can resume their push to kind of finish in the playoffs. I feel would be nice for them. And of course, Cove Rangers can continue their impressive form, and maybe do they have their eyes potentially on a wee upset and maybe pip Falkirk to the title? They're only a couple of points off Falkirk, and it was looking really interesting there in terms of who I think is going to suffer from a return. I'm looking at our very own Clyde FC. Lost some players that were on loan at Clyde. Not being replaced. Business hasn't been as active as other teams potentially around Clyde and in other divisions. Clyde already 2 games off the rest of the league, having had call-offs for COVID. Got a lot of ground to kind of make up, and before the call-off, Clyde were leaking a lot of goals, and that's something that has not yet been remedied and will have to be remedied soon.
Yeah, it's fascinating because you look at the. I feel as if fascinating is a word that's coming up a lot tonight, but it's interesting then when you look at some of the form of some of the sides that you touched on there. I can see that with 2-3 weeks full time training, I think Falkirk, especially with the chance to get back to playing, Falkirk again potentially being, if we didn't return to playing, Falkirk would maybe have another season in League One. So Falkirk will just be thrilled that they can be back on the pitch, and they'll want to get the title wrapped up as much as possible. Now, I say that as if they're marching away with it like Hearts in the Championship. They're not. They're only 3 points ahead of Cove, played the same games, won the same amount of games as well, but they'll be desperate just to try and just get back in the pitch and win as many games as possible. Like you say, that I can see the likes of Partick Thistle, maybe Airdrieonians benefiting from a bit of a break. Airdrieonians weren't the best of runs prior to the stop. Thistle were maybe starting to get back in a little bit of a run. So, again, you can refer to the form, but it's been so long since these sides have played that it really is. Anything is completely up for grabs in League One and League Two.
Yeah, well, the thing about League One is you have your full-time teams like Partick Thistle, Falkirk and Airdrie. You've got a couple of full-time guys as well. Those teams will definitely benefit more from the restart, as the players will be able to see each other more, they'll be able to train more, they'll be able to work out more than the kind of more part-time guys. So having this long off, I'd imagine those teams will start to come a lot closer together. But look, it all depends on how teams handled the break. Was there work given out? What were players working out? Who, kind of what are the attitudes at a team? Were guys following training regimes? Were they taking it easy? Obviously, a lot easier if you're full time. That's your job. But if you're part time as well, it can be quite difficult.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. You're spot on. You need to think about a lot of the part-time guys who will be working and then potentially playing 3 games a week at times as well. That could actually be, a help or a hindrance some weeks. It just completely depends. And like you say there, Ali, I'm really struggling to see how Forfar get out of it really in League One for me. Yet again, and I just think that as much as the league is going to split anyway, I can see a natural split really taking place in League One, which is maybe slightly different to the last few years. And like you say, those kind of hybrid and full-time sides with the advantage of time and things like that kind of starting to really make up that kind of top 4. I still think Montrose will be up there. I just think they're a classy outfit in general. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how the kind of bottom end of the league shapes up. What about League Two? Ali, do you get any kind of immediate thoughts on winners and losers there? I know that the rough idea of things will be similar to what we just spoke about for League One, but anything in particular?
Yeah, obviously Queen's Park. Their only objective this season was winning the league and getting promoted to League One. So again, they'll have a chance to kind of do that. Elgin and Stranraer having great seasons. They'll also be able to kind of continue with their momentum. I take that into a potential playoff scenario. Could maybe find themselves benefiting from other teams' misfortune. And personally, I think it would be a couple of surprise promotions maybe. The losers of any football returning was always going to be Albion Rovers and Brecon. Cowdenbeath as well. The teams in the bottom half of League Two, but I've personally got a focus on Albion Rovers and Brecon. If the football pyramid is upheld, then there's big problems for them with the layoff and the upcoming fixture congestion potentially. Just given the fact that they could end up in a very bad position. But if there's no pyramid, I don't really uphold, and there's not going to be a relegation from League Two, I don't really see there being any losers at all.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is probably, when it comes to League Two, maybe let's focus here first, Ali. It's quite a nice segue onto something else that we should cover, which is, people, joining clubs and finally getting a chance to play for their new club, whether it be free agents signing on, whether it be loans. The loan market in Scotland has been extended. I believe it's been extended to the end of March, which is great for a lot of lower league clubs. I guess just a kind of few developments to kind of rattle off and get your thoughts on, and whether this changes your opinion on how things might shape up, particularly in League Two. Something that I'm really interested to see is Edinburgh City, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, in comparison to seasons they've had before, granted only 9 games played, sitting 5th in the league on 13 points. Their manager's now stepped into the director of football role, and they've hired Gary Naismith on a 3-year deal. Obviously, Gary Naismith, who impressed previously at East Fife, didn't quite work out at Queen of the South, but is still classed as an exciting lower league manager. I can see him coming in with some time and having a real go at things, and really trying to kind of challenge the likes of Stirling and Stranraer for that playoffs, one or two of those playoff spots as well. And obviously Queen's Park signing, bringing in probably a player that so many defenders fear up and down the country, as well as Salim Asud Kadir as well. Bringing him back into the club. I'm a wee bit surprised that maybe didn't get more of a shot at Livingston, obviously his parent club, and obviously moved to Thistle. Didn't quite work out there. Granted, very different circumstances from usual, but obviously, hopefully, we'll probably get more game time at Queen's Park, and obviously, him and Simon Murray and things like that up top is quite a frightening thought for any defence in League Two. And just looking at some other moves as well, Ali, mostly you just mentioned them there, Brecon City, and I want to kind of take a few minutes just to focus on Brecon City. Obviously I know that's going to be difficult for you to stomach, but I'm sure we'll get through it. I think they've brought in 5 or 6 players over the course of the last, I think, couple of months. You've got the likes of Davy Hutton that's been brought in, obviously experienced keeper from Airdrieonians. Jerry McLaughlin, who obviously previously at Queen's Park, now at Pollock, he's joined. And something that we'll cover, a bit more as we get through, some of the developments in the transfer market here, is they brought in a few exciting loan signings as well. I mean, today, obviously recording on the 10th, they brought in Harris O'Connor from Rangers until the end of the season. I think it was Owen at Pure Football, the Pure Football guys. They were saying that Rangers have got something like 20 odd players loaned out across the 4 divisions, which is really interesting as well. But yeah, I don't know, Ali. I've just got a funny feeling that the break might, and bringing in these new players and Peyton getting a chance to, over the course of the next couple of weeks, to get them on the training pitch and stuff. I just think that wee bit of experience and that wee bit of added talent to the Brecon side might actually just get them up, at least get them above Albion Rovers. For me, I think their squad is looking in a much better shape than it was at the start of the season. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I agree with you. They've Bobby Barr coming in, a guy fans of the lower league will know well. He's like a fountain of youth. He seems like he's been playing forever. Abdul Osman, good player. Davy Hutton, Jerry McLaughlin. The key word with all these signings is experience. And that's exactly what you need when you're in the situation that Brecon are in. On paper, I think they're fantastic signings, and I actually agree with you that in the long term, I think that this could be a good wee turning point for Brecon, and that getting these guys on these kind of deals and maybe for the future could give a really good foundation upon which to build for next season.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on there, Ali. We'll kind of touch maybe more on League One just now, and like I say, we've got some questions to get through as well, so we'll try and be as quick as we can. But one that maybe went a little bit under the radar, I think it was announced in just a general update about the club, and it was actually officially confirmed today as well. A lot of transfer activity today. Is the signing of Michael McGlinchey, obviously New Zealand international, signing on at Clyde until the end of the season. He's been at Queen's Park. I think he joined up at Queen's Park. I think it might have only been kind of towards the end of the year, or even January. And he's obviously not stayed for too long. But the 34-year-old midfielder, very experienced, in the middle of the park. And from a Clyde perspective, I think that's something that Clyde have been absolutely crying out for. And you can just, for me, this season, it's at times, most games, it just seems as if Clyde have no midfield. With the loss of McStay and Grant and Rankin, from last season's team, they've brought back in, a Clyde hero and Kevin Nichol on amateur terms, but I think at this level you need a wee bit more. And for me, I'm really intrigued to see how McGlinchey gets on. I don't really think he got much game time at Queen's Park. But he's got bags of experience, and obviously as whenever I have seen him, is composed and has got that composed way in which he reads the game and plays the game. Like you touched on being a wee bit worried about Clyde Alley, maybe not bringing in maybe as many signings as maybe you would have liked, but is this a signing that you're a fan of?
Yeah, look, just similar to what I just said about Brecon, it's experience. Clyde are, this season are a very, very young team. A lot of guys kind of playing a wee bit above their level, guys coming in on loan, getting their first chances at like senior football. Michael McGlinchey has played at a fantastic level throughout his whole career. He's 50 plus caps for New Zealand, a Hall of Famer for the A-League for sure. A guy who's could raised eyebrows when he moved to Queen's Park. Maybe could be playing his football a wee bit higher up in the football pyramid, and the young guys will learn from him, and I think that's the important thing. And it was the same when John Rankin came in to Clyde. The legs were gone. Maybe couldn't. Well, I mean, I don't know if John Rankin was probably the fittest guy in the park, in all honesty, but he wasn't getting about. He was getting about like he was getting up there a wee bit, like he wasn't a young man anymore. But what he did bring was a guy who could read the park, read the play, communicate with the younger guys, and really organise. And I think if McGlinchey can bring even half of what John Rankin brought to Clyde, then it's a great signing.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on there, and it could well be. I'm sure that Clyde fans will want a couple more players in the door before the league resumption. Clyde have obviously will kick off in the league, and then a few days later, they've got their Scottish Cup tie against Keith as well. So yeah, I think they'll be hoping for a few more players in, but this is exactly the type of signing that I think, especially at least until the end of the season, that Clyde should be quite happy with. And obviously, if it all works out, then McGlinchey may well decide to sign on for next season as well. Obviously, depending on which division Clyde are in as well. But yeah, no, plenty of good good moves by sides, and it's great to see teams coming together as well. Something I just wanted to quickly ask you about, Ali, before we move on to just a couple of questions before we wrap up, is actually the point about the amount of loans of kind of young, exciting talent from Premiership, Championship sides that are coming to League One and League Two. As well, there's been a lot of discussion about this Colt team discussion, and I'm sure it will just rumble on as it does. And I think it might have actually been a friend, Nathan Ferguson, who does a lot of brilliant work for Queen's Park in the digital side of things, who tweeted this out, just saying that it's really positive to see all the loan moves. Hopefully this puts to bed the thought of the Colt sides. But surely this is just encouraging, and this is the way our loan market should be used moving forward, is just making sure that as many young and exciting players get out there as much as possible, and they're getting proper game time and proper experience.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and let's be honest, the Colts team's argument is redundant, especially at Talking Lower League. We are not pro Colts teams. the idea that these players need a chance to kind of play against, lower level opposition, lower league opposition to kind of progress. It's not the responsibility of the league, and it's not the responsibility of those teams to develop those players. It's the responsibility of their parent clubs. The reason it hasn't been happening before is because of the parent clubs. No one else is responsible for those players not going out on loan than the teams they currently play for. And I know that 100% is a fact. I've spoken personally to a couple of managers in the past who have said that they've tried to get, kind of good younger guys on loan from teams in the Premier League, especially the old firm, and it is a no-go. They want fees, they want contributions to player wages, and even like the kind of, you wouldn't think it, but the kind of younger guys at these teams are still getting paid a good chunk of money, which is a hit for lower league teams. And this stops them from moving, and then they just sit in under 19s or under 18s for ages, and then the argument gets shifted onto, oh well, they need a chance to develop, so they need to play. No, they should be going out. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's a good thing. It's because I'm not going to congratulate people and give people pats on the back for doing what they should have been doing all along, which is loaning out their youth players instead of complaining that they can't play as part of a league.
No, I think I don't even think you're right there. You are spot on. And I love your touch about your public service announcement that Talking Lower League is not a fan of and it does not support cult teams. We need to get that on the next shirt that we make. We'll definitely get that made. But yeah, no, absolutely agree. And hopefully we just see more of it as time goes on. Right, well, let's move on. We've just got a couple of questions, Ali, before we finish up. We've got one here just from Michael Cameron on Twitter. Thanks for your question. He's asking how many games will the leagues be reduced to so playoffs can go ahead? Obviously, I think it will stick to the 22 games potentially. However, there's a point at the end of that question I want to talk about, Ali, and that's about the playoffs. Now, there's potentially a 2 or 3 week gap from the Championship and League One playoffs taking place, so the Championship side and then the League One side. I mean, how do you think we're going to potentially tackle that? Because the Championship side that's taking part might have to wait 2 or 3 weeks before playing the League One side.
Yeah, look, it's an issue. I'm not going to lie. The issue is that the players could get a bit rusty. Players could lose a wee bit of match sharpness in that time. And a team that's in form and is kind of get the wheels turning is going to kind of continue and could turn them over. However, how you get around it, again, that's up to those teams to try and figure that out. If you're in that position, there's friendlies you can do. There's maybe inter-squad stuff you can do. They'll still be training for sure. And it's not really something that I think we should worry about too much, personally, because it's going to sort itself out. It always does.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And as ever, it just comes back to the most important thing is being able to actually play as well in the grand scheme of things as well. I'm sure they'll be fine. Right, Ali, the final question before we finish up this week. It's on Reddit, and it's from That One Scotsman. Thanks very much for your question. A Partick Thistle fan who says they enjoy the podcast. It's good content despite the fact we're Clyde fans, so you can only appreciate that, Ali. Got a good question here, and it says, when do you think fans will be realistically back in grounds? I'm struggling to see it being next season, or at least the majority of the season. And then we've got a kind of follow-up question, which is also, what do you think clubs could do to improve the viewing experience whilst fans can't go to games? So we'll tackle the first point of that question, Ali, first, which is when do you think fans will be realistically back in grounds? I mean, there's discussions south of the border anyway of some fans being back in grounds for the Euros. Obviously, that would maybe only be 20, 30, maybe even 40%. But you're hoping by the time that we kick off the new season, which will obviously be around, late August, maybe September time. Obviously, we're not sure with everything that's going on. Surely you're hoping that at our level we've got if not all of our fans back, then most of them back.
Yeah, Darren, you've kind of hit the nail on the head. The thing to remember when talking about fans returning to lower league is you don't want to really skew the playing field too much, i.e., if you're allowed 40% of your stadium capacity back, Clyde are laughing. Clyde have got everyone back. For a team like Albion Rovers, a Cowdenbeath, then that's going to hamper their fans quite a bit. Realistically, once everybody's been, we're going off in a completely different tangent, but once everyone's been vaccinated or been offered the first dose, realistically, we can start looking to get back to some normality in our lives. Football's not a top priority of the government. That's probably an understatement given everything that's happened recently. Like, there's obviously a big divide and a big kind of almost two warring factions at play there. But I don't see why not October. Is that unrealistic? Not just for people to be vaccinated, maybe even potentially 2 doses by then, but also for the league to come up with a plan, send it to teams, and teams to get the correct measures in place. Would it be something as simple as tickets? Would it be something as simple as postcodes like was tied earlier on in the season? I'm not sure, but I know things are very grim at the moment and it seems like it's never ending, but I genuinely believe that with the vaccination programme and the uptake of it, we take a look at down south, Reading and Leeds Festival is going to be back in August, a full music festival. That's insane. And if that's happening, then there's no reason that me, Dylan, and your man who's asked this question shouldn't be able to meet at a lovely Clyde versus Partick game, because you are staying in League One. Come on!
There we go. That'll be that one Scotsman, the last time that they listen to the podcast. Thanks very much for your question. Don't worry, we've still got a wee bit of it to get through. I completely agree with you, Ali. I think that it could be something as simple as, even if it's half, even if it's 50% capacity, 60%, whatever it may be, I think it is just tickets. I think it could be obviously priority to season ticket holders or club members, and then obviously the rest go out on public sale. But I do think that it is a priority, just moving forward in general, especially if I don't think we'll go back to 100% right away in the lower leagues, despite the fact that I think that come August, September, we probably could, but I don't think we will, is that we make sure that, as well as some people managing to get to the games, we keep the streaming service available as well for those that for whatever reason can't make it to the games as well. But yeah, I do genuinely think that we will see the majority of fans back by the time the season starts. Right, Ali, last part of the question here, which I'm sure we'll discuss when we get that magical pint. What do you think clubs could do to improve the viewing experience whilst fans can't go to the games? I know obviously you've touched on it before, and we've obviously talked about it privately. You're not a fan of the closed door games, and it's just doesn't feel the same at the moment. I think that's something that's shared amongst all of us. But from a lower league perspective and streaming the games and stuff, I know you've watched obviously quite a few games. What do you think clubs could do to improve the viewing experience? Is it things like making it a bit more interactive, or is anything that springs to mind?
Yeah, I think making the experience more interactive, rather than having a stream of the game and then a stream of the teams, the subs at half time kicking the ball about, and then the teams coming out again. You more interaction with crowds, potential having presenters, having some discussion between the commentators, and almost like a studio kind of thing. Could teams improve, for example, camera placement? Could dedicated camera platforms be built even temporarily to kind of benefit the angle? I know some of the games I've watched, the ball gets lost, and it's not just because the pixel art's picking up a seagull or something, or a linesman head as it was in one game. It's just hard to follow at times. I think overall it's about, instead of doing the bare minimum, which is what some clubs are doing at the moment, which is, here's the game, watch it. Try and at least bring a wee bit of kind of glitz and a bit of showbiz, maybe a bit of professionalism to it as well.
A bit of gravitas, something, because you see so many, lower league sides that are doing a lot of great stuff on social media at the moment, Ali, as well. I know, you've been talking about that recently, and obviously you've got on the flip side of that clubs that are just doing the bare minimum. Of course, there might be circumstances for that, or resource issues or whatever, but all it takes is for a couple of clubs in the lower leagues to really up their standards in the streaming side of things before others take note.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, Dylan, streaming isn't going to go anywhere. Like, once now this is set up, that it should be a continued option. I don't know how it would work in terms of a broadcast now, but say in the future, like, who didn't love Sky Sports Fan Zone? When you had the two opposing fans locked in a comment. Obviously, you couldn't do that now, but like, options like that where you kind of give fans a chance to commentate, or you have a fan of another team and stuff like that. I think it would be really make it interesting. It would create moments on your stream that could kind of, not to sound like one of those young hipster types, but go viral and bring more eyes to your product. Like, because I know, like, for example, Falkirk TV have had a few clips go quite viral and stuff through maybe right or wrong reasons, but ultimately it's two passionate guys who are like talking about football, and they create these moments that get shared around, and it's all positive in my regard.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm sure, especially at the moment when people are spending more time at home and learning more skills and stuff like that, in a lot of instances, I'm sure a lot of lower league fans would help their club if they came calling, go, look, we're looking for more skill sets, even just for a few months, just to try some new things. I'm sure that many people would get in touch and offer their services and their time and things like that, for their club, or even other clubs, just for that experience for both parties. But yeah, for me, I would love to see more interactivity, especially at half time, like you say. I mean, I've been watching a couple of streams from the Premiership, been really impressed with the setup at Hibs TV, actually. That's a wee shout out one there. I've really enjoyed that. And it is just a simple studio setup with the kind of ads and clips and things like that. And obviously, it's a Premiership club, with a big one at that. But even just taking small elements of things like this to potentially implement for lower league clubs would be good. Even if it's an interactive, you get a few audio clips or videos at half time from fans to get their reaction of the game so far, or something like that. That's obviously off the top of my head, but it could be a number of things, Ali. A number of things, like we say. But yeah. Just looking forward to being able to. I never thought I'd say it. Just being able to look forward to paying that £12 or whatever it is to watch our team in the next stream. But yeah, no, that was great. That's a brilliant double-barreled question there. That one, Scotsman. Thanks very much, and thanks to everybody for your suggestions and questions as ever. Ali, that's flown in as ever. That was brilliant, and thanks very much for joining me to mostly talk all things League One and League Two, and it'll be brilliant to be able to in a few weeks get back to doing a full lower league card again, preview and review, our bread and butter. That'll be great to get back to doing that, and hopefully as well, which is something we're probably going to try and revisit in the next couple of weeks, even it might just be a one-off, as our West of Scotland Weekly show. Don't worry, we've not forgotten about that at all. We want to get back and do something. We're just not quite sure what that might look like. Hopefully, obviously, it's back talking about stuff on the pitch. However, we might be talking about stuff off it soon as well. There's been a lot of exciting things happening at the West of Scotland League. So keep a wee eye out for that. And any suggestions you might have for any episodes or themes or anything, just give us a shout. Obviously, you can get us on our social media channels at TB Lower League on Twitter, and search Talking Lower League on LinkedIn and also Instagram and also YouTube as well. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, thanks. Make sure to subscribe. If you're listening and you want to see Ali and I's faces, which I don't really know whether that's a good or a bad thing, and I'll let you guys decide that, head over to our YouTube, just search Talking Lower League there as well. And yeah, thanks everybody again, as ever, much appreciated. Stay safe, and yeah, we'll chat to you all next week.